The BBFC description says contains strong language and performance-enhancing drugs, and that's pretty much the story. So it's the dramatised version of the Lance Armstrong story with a very, very sort of scarily convincing performance by Ben Foster. As with the awards-winning Philomena, we have somebody who's known primarily for comedy cast as the journalist who sees us through the story. In this case, Chris O'Dowd as David Walsh, upon whose expose the original script is based. Here's a clip.
Dr. Ferrari made a statement about EPO. Do you remember that?
No.
Did you ever visit Michele Ferrari?
I did know him.
How did you know him?
In cycling, you go to races, there are lots of people, small community.
Did you ever visit him?
Did I get tested by him? Did I go there and get consulted on certain things? I mean, perhaps.
So you did. Sorry, just because the tape recorder won't really pick up on your body language, can I get a yes or a no on that?
Perhaps.
He's about to be tried for criminal conspiracy.
I think the judges and the prosecutors should pursue everybody, no matter who they are, because that's their job.
So both the triumphs and the problems are sort of the same thing. On the one hand, I mean, you have a very, very good performance there by Ben Foster, who really inhabits that role, so much so that when they're cutting between dramatized footage and archive footage, you are struggling to see, to see the line. That's done very well. And the story is kind of intriguing because obviously it's a story about somebody who went through terrible illness, came out the other end of it, and then became this really heroic, triumphant story, and then absolutely stood by the integrity of what he had done until finally it was suddenly revealed that that integrity was actually false. The problem is that to make a comparison, if you think about the Robert Zemeckis film, The Walk, which is in cinemas at the moment, The Walk follows James Marsh's film Man on Wire, which in many ways is both more dramatic and more truthful than The Walk, because it's first-hand interviews with Philip Petit and it's actual news stills. But what that film doesn't have is it doesn't have moving footage of the walk, and what Robert Zemeckis' film does have, although the storytelling itself is slightly baggy and slightly dramatically moulded to make it acceptable, is it does have that incredible 20-minute sequence. Now, in the case of this, the Alex Gibney film, The Armstrong Lie, is a fascinating documentary made in 2013. Particularly fascinating because when Gibney started making it, he was making it pretty much as an endorsement of Lance Armstrong, and then the film fell down amidst the revelations about what was actually happening in terms of doping and blood transfusions and all the rest of it. And he then went back and made this film called The Armstrong Lie, which has got this really terrifically broken back structure, in as much as it's telling a story of a fallen hero that actually has the fall of the hero as its centerpiece. Now, in the case of this particular dramatic work, there's not much in it in terms of the storytelling that isn't in The Armstrong Lie, and The Armstrong Lie is very dramatic and very truthful. What this doesn't have that The Walk has is it doesn't have a major dramatic reason to dramatize. So whereas The Walk says, okay, fine, you may know everything about Philip Petit and you may have heard these stories before, but you never stood on that wire with him. In the case of this, what we have is, well, you may never have been on the bike with Lance Armstrong. And the cinematography is very well done. But in the end, it's not like the racing footage is going to make you go, you have to go and see that film. Because an awful lot of it, as I was watching, I did think, okay, I have seen all this. And I do know that because that performance is so convincing, I sort of feel like I've seen the original of it anyway. I mean, Stephen Frears is a very fine and accomplished director. And technically, it's well done. I also appreciate that there will be people who will see this who didn't see the Armstrong Lie, because the Armstrong Lie being a documentary obviously was a slightly harder sell. But my feeling is that if you have seen the Armstrong Lie, you have seen this story done as truthfully and dramatically as was necessary.